Once again, a very good morning to one and all. A lockdown should not stand between me and my dear students. That's why I am back with the part 2 of chapter 3 questions by Leo Tolstoy. So, without wasting any time, let's move on to the characters of the story. We have the king, the hermit, and the wounded man. We also call him a bearded man. Now let's know more something about the characters of the story. King, who is intrigued by three deeply important questions, and he comes across a hermit who answers his questions and shows us all a new way of life. Hermit is an impoverished outcast who lives a simple life. We are told he is frail and weak and is barely able to turn the soil with his spade. The hermit is a very wise man, however, and we discover why as the story progresses. And at last we have the wounded man who was attended by the king, and the hermit is the third character in the story. Now let's do the recapitulation of part 1. The story takes the form of a parable and it concerns a king who wants to find the answers to what he considers the three most important questions in life. The thought came to a certain king that he would never fail if he knew three things. These three things were: what was the right time to begin something, which people he should listen to, and what was the most important thing for him to do. For this, the king sent messengers throughout his kingdom, and he promised to give a reward of a large sum to the person who answered his three questions, but he received different answers from different people. As the king was not satisfied with the answers, so he gave no reward to anyone. Therefore, the king decided to seek the advice of the hermit, who was known for his wisdom. So he went to hermit's hut in ordinary clothes, because hermit used to see only common folk. There, in a wood, the king saw hermit, who was old and weak, was digging the ground. The king asked his questions but got no answer. The hermit was busy with his work, and lastly king offered hermit his help in digging. After digging two beds, the king repeated his questions. Then also the hermit gave no answer to him. Several hours passed. Then the king became impatient and was about to leave. Just then, the hermit told that someone was running towards them. Now, without wasting any time, let's move on to part 2. The king turned round and saw a bearded man running towards them. His hands were pressed against his stomach, from which blood was flowing. When he reached the king, he fainted and fell to the ground. The king and the hermit removed the man's clothing and found a large wound in his stomach. The king washed and covered it with his handkerchief, but the blood would not stop flowing. The king redressed the wound until at last the bleeding stopped. When the man felt better, he asked for something to drink, and the king brought fresh water and gave it to him. By this time, the sun had set and the air was cool. The king, with the hermit's help, carried the wounded man into the hut and laid him on the bed. The man closed his eyes and lay quiet. The king, tired by his walk and the work he had done, lay down on the floor and slept through the night. And when he awoke, it was several minutes before he could remember where he was or who the strange bearded man lying on the bed was. When the bearded man saw that the king was awake, he, in a weak voice, said, "Forgive me." But the king was not able to understand what the matter was. So he said, "I do not know you and have nothing to forgive you for." To this the bearded man said, "You do not know me, but I know you. I am that enemy of yours who swore revenge on you because you put my brother to death and seized my property. I knew you had gone alone to see that hermit, so I made up my mind to kill you on your way home." But the day passed and you did not return. So I left my hiding place and I came upon your bodyguard, who recognized me and wounded me. I escaped from him, but I should have died if you had not dressed my wounds. I wished to kill you, and you have saved my life. Now, if I leave, I will serve you as your most faithful servant, and will order my sons to do the same. So, forgive me. The king was very happy to have made peace with his enemy so easily and to have won him over as a friend. He not only forgave him but said he would send his servants and his own doctor to look after him, and he also promised to give back the man his property. Leaving the wounded man, the king went out of the hut and looked round for the hermit. Before going away, he wished once more to get answers to his questions. The hermit was on his knees sowing seeds in the beds that had been dug the day before. The king went up to the hermit and said, "For the last time I beg you to answer my questions, wise man." The hermit, still bending down to the ground and looking up at the king as he stood before him, said, "You have already been answered." To this, the king said, "How have I been answered? What do you mean?" Then the hermit replied, "Do you not see? If you had not pitied my weaknesses yesterday and had not dug these beds for me, you would have gone away. Then that man would have attacked you and you would have wished you had stayed with me. So, the most important time was when you were digging the beds. And I was the most important man, and to do me good was your most important business. Afterwards, when the man ran to us, the most important time was when you were caring for him. Because if you had not dressed his wounds, he would have died without having made peace with you. So, he was the most important man, and what you did for him was your most important business. The hermit further told the king that the most necessary person is the person you are with at a particular moment, for no one knows what will happen in the future and whether we will meet anyone else. The most important business is to do good to that person because we were sent into this world for that purpose alone. And the most important time is now because it is the only time we have any part to act. So, we have got a lot of lessons here in the story that the most important time is the present moment because the past is gone away from us and the future is uncertain. So, the moral of the story is to live in a present rather than grumbling about the past and being anxious about tomorrow. Above all, we have learned to forgive also. In the story, even the king knew that the man he helped is his enemy. He still chose to help him and forgave him. So give importance to time and never waste it, and respect all the people and always do good to others. So, we have got a lot of lessons here in the story that the most important time is the present moment because the past is gone away from us and the future is uncertain. So, the moral of the story is to live in a present rather than grumbling about the past and being anxious about tomorrow. Above all, we have learned to forgive also. In the story, even the king knew that the man he helped is his enemy. He still chose to help him and forgave him. So give importance to time and never waste it, and respect all the people and always do good to others. Now move on to some glossaries. Fainted, became unconscious. Swore, took a vow. Seized, took away. Made up my mind, determined, made peace with, compromise. Sowing seeds, to scatter seed over land for the purpose of growth. Pitied, felt sympathetic. Hermit, Saint, bearded, having beard. Revenge, the action of hurting or harming someone in return for an injury or wrong suffered at their hands. Now let's do some comprehension check. Why did the bearded man swear revenge on the king? The options are: the king punished him, the king punished his father, the king was cruel, the king put his brother to death and seized his property. Out of these four options, you have to choose the most appropriate one. Next, who wounded the bearded man? The king's bodyguard, the hermit, the king, or the king's counselors? Third one, according to the story, which time is the most important? Today, now, tomorrow, or yesterday? Moving on to the next one, according to the story, who is considered as the most important person? Your friends, your relatives, your parents, or the person you are with at a particular moment? Last but not the least, who is the author of the story? Vasant Surya, Leo Tolstoy, Rabindranath Tagore, or Ruskin Bond? So tomorrow you all will be given the questions of part 2 to complete. In the meantime, please go through the content of the chapter. Till then, take care and thank you all.